What up, world, and welcome to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. I'm your host, Neal, and of course, I got my co-host, KinkySudz, in the building. Ren will be with us. Mr. Refine himself will be with us shortly, but this is going to be a wonderful, amazing show, as it always is. Pat ourselves in the back. But definitely, we're going to be talking about Season 4, the final season of Castlevania. And what a season it was. What a season it was indeed. KinkySudz, how you feeling?
Yes. Amazing. I gotta say, when you think about just how the week has gone, it is nice to be up here with you on Friday. It's great. This is good. I'm excited for our guest we're gonna have today. So,
and shout out to our homie, Mr. Brick Brick Terrarian himself. Shout him out.
He's always here. I love it.
Always hopping on. We got a special guest today. When Ren can join us, happy graduation to Ren's eldest son out here doing his thing, moving on. Kinky left on me. That's all right. She'll jump back on. But I want to let everybody know while we're waiting, as we always do, we talk about the good, bad, and ugly. But with season 4 of Castlevania, we really got to talk about what did we think about the season. And I'm not going to lie, hands down, the season was hot fire. All right. The season was hot fire. There she goes. She's back. But KinkySudz, what you drinking on?
Oh, so I always go with themes. Okay. Clearly I was bringing heat and my camera just couldn't handle it because, clearly. But I thought I might go with something a little bit different called the Death of Civilization.
Yeah, that looks nice. That's a fire. That's a fire can art right there. That is.
You get what I'm saying? All right. I mean, look at this. This is a hazy Imperial IPA. And I have to say, it's sitting at 8%. I always laugh when they call it an Imperial IPA because I'm always expecting it to be above 8%. But this one's only 8%. But look at that. Look at that.
And are you drinking only one today?
I'm only drinking one today because I felt like this one fit perfectly. You get what I'm saying? And like this here, I'm going to be drinking it out of my chalice.
Oh, that was amazing. Yes. And if people don't know who your cosplay is today, can you let them know?
I mean, if they can't tell with the white hair, the red, and the long red nails with the golden chalice, did you even really watch, Castlevania?
And I really want to talk about that character. I really want to talk how they did her, but I'll wait.
Carmella.
As for me, I got 3 as I always do. Shout out to Buck Wild Brewing Company out here in Oakland, California, with their Amber. This is a gluten-free brewing company.
Gluten-free.
I know, right? So this is definitely science and enzymes. Something that KinkySudz is well versed in.
Yes.
This one is 5.3 ABV. I also
you went low. That's
I got low today. I got low. Typically I go high. But shout out to the Rare Barrel there in Berkeley, California, and I have their Hyper Paradise. Check that.
I like the name. That's nice. Hyper Paradise. Okay.
This is a golden sour beer, aged in oak barrels, as all their beer is. And it is. It has mangoes and passion fruit, and the ABV is 7.2. So yeah. Go ahead.
I get so upset when they do sours with mango and passion fruit. I'm like, no, those are supposed to be sweet. Don't make it sour.
We gotta make it sour. And then last but not least, this is my social media manager's favorite, the Sangria Noir. This is again from the Rare Barrel. This is actually a sour version of the Sangria, and it is 10.1 ABV. So I did get high enough. But without further ado, before we jump into here, we got to bring on our guests. Now, for those that don't know, again, we love craft beer here, and we brought a guest with us who also loves craft beer. We're going to bring him on, and his name, his moniker is Pass My Cup, out there and holding it down. So Pass My Cup. Let's just go ahead and add him to the playlist. What's going on with you, brother?
Yo, what's going on? How y'all doing?
Oh man, I can't complain. It's sunny. It's sunny out where you at, man. The sun's shining.
A little bit. I'm not gonna lie. The sun goes down kind of late over here where I'm at. So But it's standing over there with y'all at for sure.
Yeah. So you must be ready for this conversation because I know you binge watched. Were you able to finish up to season 4?
I'm on season 4 now on like episode 3.
Oh,
I'm okay with the spoilers though, just because I'm still gonna watch it anyways.
Yeah, we gonna be honest with y'all. Like, this is spoilers alert. I'm just saying up front. I talk to KinkySudz and like, hey, if you're gonna do a spoiler alert, hit me up in the private chat and say spoiler alert. But this is all spoilers. This is the final season, and we are gonna talk crazy. And I see that Blackbearded Nerd is on the live, but I'm definitely gonna try to link him in one time. But before we get going, pass my cup. What are you drinking? And I'm bringing the camera to you.
I'm drinking my homebrew, actually.
Talk about
it.
Just yet, but it is a mango wheat beer. Got some flaked oats, flaked wheat. Threw some honey up in there. It's real. I like it. I actually brewed this beer for a family event or whatnot, a baby shower, and made a whole keg of it. I took maybe about 6 or 7 bottles just for my personal use, and the whole keg went away within a whole day.
Wow!
So people was liking it. There's digging it. The mango, I like the way it came out. I got a couple of tweaks I want to make to it, but not too many because I was satisfied with how it came out so far. ABV a good 6.8.
Okay.
So it's crushable. See the color.
Crushable. And for those who are like, what the hell does crushable mean? Sessionable, crushable, meaning that you can drink this and drink multiple. Okay, you can knock it back without a problem. I'm gonna open up Buck Wild. I'm gonna open up this amber, but I'm gonna start it off with. I gotta start off with. We're gonna ask you, what was your? Because again, we always start off, and let me go ahead and go to it. We always start off with the good, bad, and the ugly. Okay, so I want to know, what was your good about Castlevania so far, all the way up to season 4, episode 3, where you're at. Take it away from season 1 to season 4. What's your good about Castlevania?
I like the show. Like, I consider myself to be new to anime, but this one is a really good one. Can we curse on here?
Yeah, man, it's unfiltered. Okay. Like Roller Marley.
I fuck with it. Season 1 was pretty dope. Season 2 was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, season 3, I was kind of in and out of it. It was a lot of dialogue in season 3, in my opinion.
That is a fact.
Up until like they did the Game of Thrones. How it was kind of like dialogue throughout the whole entire series, throughout the whole entire season. But those last 2 episodes was fire. And I do think those last 2 episodes was a great way to segue into season 4, because season 4 started off fire. So it seemed like they had to they knew they had to make up for season 3, I guess. They just started season 4 as a banger. So the good so far is good. The action is good. The fighting scenes are great. Trevor, he's a fucking beast with that whip.
Star.
And I like the chick too, the magician.
Oh, Cypher.
Oh, Cypher.
You gotta get Cypher. Yeah, you gotta put some respect on her name.
Cypher is pretty dope too. I like they combo. And when they had the trio with what's the guy's name? The vampire Alucard. Yeah. That trio together was pretty dope.
We're gonna get into that. I'm sending, Blackbearded Nerd, man, Ren, I'm sending this to you via email. So check the email multiple times. I sent you that link. I know I got the email right, because I know the last time I sent it said mail or delivery type situation. But
it was like, we're not sending it.
You got to cheers up.
Oh yeah, cheers up, cheers.
Cheers.
Well, no, you gotta show your chalice. You gotta show your golden chalice out here to get that. That's what I'm talking about. KinkySudz, talk to us. You're good on Castlevania.
Let me tell you something. When you talk about a highly anticipated series, and they come and drop this new season. And the way that they've done the first 3 seasons, you've got to be like, okay, either you're going to do this right, or you're going to do like Game of Thrones, right? You're going to just completely screw up the last season, right? And I have to say that this season was amazing from beginning to end. It was nonstop action. I felt that they allowed for each of the main characters that we had seen over the past 3 seasons, Alucard, Trevor, Sypha, to have their moments in the sun, right? And I love that they kept having it where Dracula kept getting dropped throughout the season, so you're like always anticipating, waiting. It's kind of like when you think about a Godzilla movie where you're like, oh, I see bits and pieces of Godzilla, or there's mention of them, so you're like waiting for this reveal to happen, right? But I think overall the fight scenes were amazing. They weren't drawn out. I thought the creatures that they brought in, the night creatures, I thought were absolutely amazing. And the fact that they gave you some closure with Hector and Isaac, I thought was really, really cool. I am curious because of the way that they ended the season that they could still come back with another season. I hope they do, but it would be interesting to see what direction they would take, especially with the way that it ended. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the season. It was one of those where you want to binge watch consistently, but then you're like, once I finish it, I have nothing else to watch. So that's how I felt about it.
And as I deal with the technical difficulties getting Blackbearded Nerd on,
Mr. Revine.
Yeah, no, like I'm sending links and everything, but I will figure it out. As for me, the good, especially I'm focusing on season 4. Season 4 was just hot fire. Like, I mean, I'm not, and I know Pass My Cup said he's good with the spoilers. Season 4 for everyone who will watch season 4, that is how you end a season. Okay. I still got my ugly, of course. I still got my bad. My ugly is kind of, I mean, it's probably, I think a lot of people will be like, yeah, like that ugly makes sense. But this season was just amazing. Like it literally continued on from season 3.
Right.
It really, from how it ended in season 3, it picked right back up literally and went forward and really just showcase the world that Trevor Belmont has been a part of for years. His family has been a part of ever since they were ostracized and literally hunted down by the nobles and the kings and queens and all of them because they felt they didn't need them anymore. That the threat was null and void. And that kind of really that really showcased itself even more so in season 4. So definitely that was my good. Let's jump into the bad. I started off with Pass My Cup again. You're a guest while I work on getting Blackbearded Nerd on. So what was your bad so far? I mean, you watched all the seasons and you're up on season 4. So I definitely want to get your input on what your bad was of the show.
My bad so far is season 3.
Talk about it.
Right.
Like I said, I did think it had too much dialogue in there. Like season 1, there was a lot of action. It wasn't as much action that they have in season 4. But you don't expect that much action season 1. So it kind of like built up better. But it didn't have that slow build up. It was kind of like on pace. Everything was going at a moderate pace and whatnot. Then season 2, it was taken off. Then season 3 comes around and they just talking the whole time. They added like a couple action scenes here and there, but the action didn't kick in for me. So that's my bad. I didn't get to season 4 yet, or I'm not that far in season 4. But my only bad is season 3.
Only bad
like
is
8 episodes
3.
or whatever.
KinkySudz, go into detail with your bad.
Man, I would have to say for season 4, I'm trying to think of what would be my bad. I think it would probably be, you can tell that they were really trying to cram a lot into the short season. I do think that for some of the characters, they kind of left it where like for one of them being Lenore, who was held captive, when they had their castle stormed by the night creatures, right? And I swear her character, she was such a big part in season 3, right?
Yes.
And I felt like in this season they really didn't do much with her. Like they didn't really do much with her at all. And I know we're going to be doing some spoilers, but the way she was taken out, and it was under her own will, right? Like she's like, you know what, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a bird in a cage. I don't want to do this. And she's like, I want to see what the sun looks like. And I was like, that was just so much that, you know, he went through to try and get her together and to save her, to say, no, don't go after her, go after Camilla, but leave her be. And he didn't really do much with her. It was sad. I thought that part was really sad, that she felt as though she had no purpose left, that she didn't see anything in the world for her. And I think the other thing too, for some of the other characters, like Alucard, he was again in a lot of the fight scenes, but they really didn't do too much with him either, right? Like they showed him fighting, of course, but I think that they were trying to leave it open-ended with him possibly having a new love interest, right?
Yeah.
But I think overall, I think it was just that some characters who we had come to know and learn more about over the past few seasons really didn't get their shine, you know, their time in the light. But I do think that they were trying to set it up so that there would be future seasons where you get to dig a little bit deeper into them. But I wish they would have done a little bit more with some of the characters, just a little bit.
Now, Lenore, because I really wanted to ask that question. That was on my mind in my green notebook. Shout out to Earning Leisure, Rashawn, for always having a notepad. I got the notebook. How did you feel about Lenore's conversation, especially towards that end when she wanted to go see the sun? Because it made it seem like you wanted to provide empathy for that character, but I was like, you literally had Hector as a pet, even though you had feelings for him, but it was still a pet. It was like, I love you as long as I can control you with the words and everything. So to me, the way that they ended her as a character, yes, I understand she was saying that she was all about diplomacy, but even when I wrote down while I was taking notes, I was like, that's not really diplomacy in the sense of you're having a conversation and coming to an agreed upon benefit for it's a win-win situation. It was more so of, we're vampires, we have power, we could kill you all, but we're not going to kill you all because you're our food source, A, but B is that we could kill you all. So you either work with us or I have the rest of the team kill you. So KinkySudz, I really, since that was your bad, and I had that question in the back of my mind, how did you really feel about Lenore's character with that conversation with her and Hector at the end, and just in general throughout season 4?
I think honestly, it just really, when he was pointing it out to her, Hector was showing her, you know, how one-sided she was. It really demonstrated how wrapped up in Camilla she was. Like, it really showed that she was like, yes, I know she can get off on the deep end if she's left with her thoughts and is able to sit and think, and she can get a little big-headed. But I'm here to help keep her grounded. And once she was gone, right, she's like, well, I don't have a purpose anymore, right? So this whole sisterhood that they had, this covenant, right, that they had, you know, with each other, it was like, clearly we know who the main head of that foursome was.
Yeah.
And once she was gone, you saw with her other two sisters, they just said, oh, the castle blew up. Okay, well, how about we just bounce, right? So they were like, hey, we got each other. We're going to go and enjoy each other while we can, right? I mean, they can because they don't die unless they go out into the sun. But they were like, screw this. We're just going to go. We out. But Lenore, she was just like, I don't have a purpose. It's like she lost her purpose. And it was like you said, she couldn't control him anymore, because when he cut his finger off, which I thought was dope, I was thinking the whole thing, like, why don't you just cut that bad boy off? But he was playing the long game. But I think it was pretty interesting that, you know, when you think about it, she couldn't control him anymore. And the fact that he even loved her with all her flaws, she didn't feel comfortable enough with that. She's like, but that means I have no power. We're going to be seen as equals. And he's like, but yes, why can't we be seen as equals? And because he was always in a very submissive role for his entire life, always had a master. And for once now he could think for himself. But I also think too, Hector is probably going to end up like Lenore, because he seemed lost. Because like when Isaac said to him, okay, well, we don't need to bring back Dracula. Go do you. Hector looked really confused. He was like, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's a fact. Can you talk more about that?
He was like, I don't know what that means. And you're like, what do you mean you don't know what that means? Like, dude, you can finally go and set what you want. You don't have a master anymore who's a vampire. You can pretty much go anywhere in the world where you want. You can make night creatures because you finally learned how to do that. You can basically have your own little thing set up and be good for yourself. And he seemed genuinely lost. So I felt as though that's why him and Lenore kind of met eye to eye during that conversation, because they each were basically saying the same thing to each other, right? You don't know what your purpose is, so why do you want to do this? Yes, it would be nice to spend time with you, but I can't control you. So it's just really interesting to see that with them. And she wanted to go out on her own accord, which is like, that's cool and all, but that was like wasted. That was just wasted. You could have gone and done so many other things. If you really wanted to be diplomatic, you could have changed the perception of vampires, and she chose to just not even do that. She just said, I'm out. So to me, I just felt like it was an easy way out. And that she really, and to me, when she said that she, they were hinting that she loved him, I don't think she really did, because she was like, I'm out.
She loved him like I said, like a pet, but she loved him like a pet that she's had so many of them that it was like, all right, you're just another one.
They've been around for like hundreds of years. She probably had a few.
Exactly. And what I did, and I'll get more in depth in the story overall, because I do want to talk about Hector's character as well and agree to a lot of the things that you're saying on that. But pass my cup. What was it for you? Because you said bad was season 3 because of the Game of Thrones, like that time of just conversation, which again, Game of Thrones can burn and die for all I care, especially with that last season. Everything else was all right, but that last season just didn't culminate to anything whatsoever.
It was all wrong.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was just trash, period. What in that Lenore aspect, and the reason why I keep hinting on Lenore is because it's a question that I have that I'm going to bring up as we finish our good, bad, and the ugly.
I wanted to
go ahead. Go ahead. Speak on.
To piggyback of what KinkySudz was saying, because of where I'm at now, like I said, I don't care about the spoilers, but where I'm at now, it seems like Lenore has that power. You know what I'm saying? So to hear y'all saying like, I'm thinking like, Lenore about to get on fire right now. You know what I'm saying? But to hear y'all say they just cut her off, it's like, well, damn, I kind of wasn't expecting that because of the position she was in. Because right now she's like, she's kind of combating with Camilla as far as like, I don't like the way you're doing things right here, and everyone's kind of finding that like she's like going batshit crazy.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Right.
But to hear that, she kind of like took the easy way out. It's like, well, damn.
Yeah, did you? I mean, yeah, that easy way aspect, that was something where I had to. Excuse me for coming on. That was something that I really had to get with as well. As far as like, I did feel it was really cheap of her character, because the whole melodic. She liked Hector because he still had a softness and innocence that she just was not. She probably had in the beginning of her time. I don't know if she was born a vampire or turned, but I think she was turned a vampire.
I think she was.
Yeah, and it's just like she liked that innocence of him, but then she also just liked that he was intelligent to a level. But it was that innocent, still yearning and thinking of humanity and having a level of emotion and love, or whatever verb we want to use, that it was there, that she really was intrigued by that, outside of wanting to use them. Because I mean, we know the bottom line, she wanted to use them to build night creatures, but that wasn't really what she wasn't really after that. Back to KinkySudz point, it was really Camilla that wanted to do that to build up her army. And Lenore was like, okay, even in that conversation, she thought that once she thought that once once Camilla would get to a level of, okay, we got Dracula, now it's no Dracula anymore. Now these men are crazy, so we're gonna have our own safety, and we're gonna build small, but we're also going to interact with humans in a way that's not just what Camilla was like. At least Lenore thought, but Camilla was exactly like that, and Lenore was really, again, her naivety was why she, I think, again, liked Hector, because she was so naive, thinking that Camilla wasn't really who she was, even though Hector And season 3 was like, no, that is who Camilla is. Like she literally beat Hector to an inch of his life.
And she made him walk like 800 miles.
Can we, man, talk what did you feel on that? Pass my cup. What did you feel on that when she made him walk all the way to the castle? Go ahead.
I mean, it is what it is, you know. Like she didn't give a fuck about him, you know. She straight up in power mode. She told him like, me and my people, we gonna get on these horses.
Right. She was cold. And I'm like, you know what? It got me when I saw that part. I was like, so wait, you get mad at Dracula for wiping out a whole town because they killed his girl, the one who brought a bit of humanity back into him. But you eventually want to conquer the world. And on top of that, you want to, you know, beat this guy with an inch of his life and then tell him, oh, yeah, you got to walk and you're going to be our slave and you got to make us an army.
Yeah.
Like, so how different does that make you from Dracula? Like, Dracula was like, I just want to kill everybody. I don't want nobody. I don't.
That was some crazy stuff. But we got, 20 minutes in, 20 plus minutes in, and we finally got a back to the Mr. Refine himself. What up with you, brother?
Hey.
What up?
Hey man, technical difficulties, but that's how life go. And again, hey, so let's get your good. First of all, let's get what you drinking, because it's craft beer every time when we do this. What are you drinking on?
After watching that, feeling real classic pretty much, and Castle, I had to go with something monastery and old school and classic, so I went with that for the drink.
I love it.
Now what was your good? Because we're on the bad right now, but what was your good?
My good was everything.
What was your bad?
My good was everything.
Season 4 was hot fire.
I really feel like when you watch a series, this is something that should happen in every series. They should be able to find a way to round everything up, make it be cohesive, not like leave you lagging behind. And I had no complaints at all behind it, like the action, the storyline, the development of characters. There's some things I could pick apart, but overall, it was good, and I felt like it ended very well.
Now, what about your bad, man? Talk about your bad.
My bad. I don't have too much bad. I have more ugly, but my bad would be I didn't like how Camilla or Carmella kind of just got killed so fast. I didn't really care for that. I felt like she should have had a little bit more power going on, especially since she was fighting just Isaac. Yeah, I see the night creatures, etc. But personally, I felt like Carmella could have wiped them off. I did notice that she went crazy with all the power and all that rage she had.
All the blood, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she had like a bloodlust. But as far as just in general, she went crazy. So I can understand her possibly being weak later on, because mentally she didn't have it anymore. That's why she wanted to conquer everything and have everybody like slaves. So that was my bad.
Yeah, I mean, let me zoom in on this way. I'm trying to get everything together. For me, my bad definitely is going to be how Camilla and Lenore went out. I think Camilla's, and I took notes too, so I'll talk about it a little bit, but I'm going to be quick about it so we can jump into really the real full-on aspect of the show. Camilla had a vision, and it wasn't out of nowhere. They really made her seem like the woman who, I'm tired of these idiotic, stupid men, what she said, the very small-minded men, even like Dracula. And I agreed that what she was saying about Dracula was pretty much what she was saying. What I was saying is that, he fell in love and he was thinking with his dick and not with his brain. And even though he wanted Lisa to be human, and he was, again, back to that human side, and that ties into one of the questions. Again, I'm keeping that question because I want to hold it off, but it's really tying into that aspect of like, what is a vampire, and what are you after? And then also what she was talking about as far as throughout her time as a vampire, and probably as a woman before turning into a vampire, she still was a female. Excuse me. Camilla was just like, I took this castle from an idiotic, small-minded man. And I was just like, the way she treated the male vampires, it was the same way. Like everything was like, you are all insignificant. And the funny thing is for me, and why I put bad for Lenore and Camilla is really that Camilla knew that Hector was more capable than what Lenore or any of the other two vampires, Streger and I got these names written down. What I put their name at? Oh snap! What I get? Where did I put them? Miranda and
there you go.
Shiguri, if I got her name right. But like they listened to Camilla, but Lenore was like, no, he's just a pet. Like he's too innocent, he's too emotional. And I just really didn't like how Camilla it seemed like she didn't have a backup plan. They made it seem like all this planning she did to kill Dracula and to go through the court was just because he was it just was crazy to me how that ended. So that was my bad.
That played into my ugly.
Yeah, I definitely just didn't like that. The battle was great, and to your point, Blackbeard Nerd, like for real, like I know Isaac took a lot of time and all this stuff like that, and he found himself, and he's been building night creatures because he got all these fresh dead bodies and whatnot. But I was just like the one night creature that could literally take any type of hit from Camilla. I was like, what is this night creature? And like, how did the one, because that night creature was a beast. I mean, it almost kind of looked a little bit like Isaac or a little bit like some type of human. So I was like, did he infuse a whole lot of his soul? And again, they didn't go into detail of what Isaac was doing that whole time outside of building that city back up and he was like for people. And I love that change because I want to talk about Isaac a little bit later on, but I just didn't understand, to your point, Ren, how Lenore, as a vampire that's been dealing with, I mean, I don't know, hundreds if not thousands of years, and then she just gets wiped off. And it wasn't like any of the power was, maybe the power is draining her, because I forgot what Hector had said when he talked to that male vampire that was in prison, which again, back to that whole arrogance of men are just these worthless, small-minded, very manipulative, I can manipulate them easily aspect, and really just have no backup plan. So that was my bad. Let's get to the ugly, because again, we passed the 30-minute mark. But let's go with Ren. Ren, what do you think? What was your ugly, man?
My ugly, honestly, was just watching all that and knowing again how Carmela was. But when you watch the relationship between Lenore and Hector, why did they make it seem like after he was a pet and all this stuff, when she decided to go into the sun, they're like, oh, all of a sudden they're in love sort of thing. That's kind of what they was alluding to. And I didn't really like it. I thought it was interesting, but I'm like, at the same time, where do you get this relationship? I understand that can happen. I forgot what the
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
But in this sense, I didn't understand that relationship and how that ended up developing to where he felt like he was in love with her, or they was trying to allude to it. And when she died at the end, she still played him like she was like, silly man, as she burned away into the sun. And that right there kind of bothered me, because if you are held captive, and like you said, he got beat to an inch of his life, he walked for 800 miles, all this stuff. If you get treated like that, how can you end up falling in love with somebody that does that to you? And you even protected her when Isaac had raided the castle with all the night people. So that was pretty much my ugly. And I can go on and on with some other stuff, but I'm gonna leave it at that, because I feel like that's the only thing that really had a hole in the storyline. Man, that's just me.
All right, I'm gonna go to Pat. We're gonna jump back to the team. I'm gonna go to Pass My Cup. What's your ugly so far, even though you're not finished with season 4?
So I guess got to go back to season 3.
That man really hates season 3, like for real.
Like season 3, the whole thing.
Just that's as far as I've gotten so far. How can I?
Put it however way you want to put it, man. It's all good.
Season 3 had dialogue. Like, I don't know how it ended, but I guess hearing from what you guys are talking about, I'm gonna guess that I can see how they just cut Lenore off, opposed to like having her, because I thought her and Hector were to do like something cool together.
She's gonna change her ways,
even though she treated Hector like like shit. I thought like once she came and kind of confronted Camilla, I thought that's when she was gonna have that realization. Because Hector was already like, fuck this shit, obviously. You know, they got me in here in a whole cage. And she even tried to like look out for him, saying, I'm gonna give him his own little crib. You know, he's not gonna have the leash on his neck anymore. But he still had it around his finger though. So I mean, I guess that's where the real
fact. KinkySudz, it's all you. Talk about it.
Well, let me tell you. First off, the fact that for the first 3 seasons they had it where Carmella had stated that men were so insignificant with their thinking, and then this last season they had it where she wanted to take over the world. I was like, you're having her play into the same stereotypes that she was shitting on for the first 3 seasons.
Okay, you finish before can we say that the way they did her, and excuse me for my rude interjection, but the way they did her was the same way they did Khaleesi in Game of Thrones since Pass My Cup brought it on. And I just I don't see it. Like there is nothing in between seasons 1 through 3, even leading up to 4. Literally her plan worked. She literally planned it all out, utilizing men, and none of the men, whether they be vampire, whether they be human, none of their minds, none of them got any epiphany after the death of Dracula. And yet and still she doesn't have a her trust in Lenore, even though she showed that Lenore, no one gives a damn what you're talking about. This is the focus I've always had. It just tripped me out. But go ahead. I was
gonna say, I think that piece there where she wanted to take over the world, I was like, it just didn't seem to fit for me, right? And I can understand it that she would be a little bit more understanding with Lenore because she considers her to be like a little sister. So she was like, I get it. You haven't been around as long as I have. So, you got this little pet. That's fine. Whatever. So, but I think for me, the other thing, and besides her, I thought her fight scene was great. Yes. I think it played on the idea that Isaac really thought this through. That he had planned it in a way where they wouldn't think that they would come back. And he was like, she wouldn't expect me to do this because she sees me as just a human.
Yeah.
And so I think that they did that part properly because he was still somewhat working with Hector.
Yeah.
So even though those two may have had their disagreement once Dracula died, those two still were working together. Now, I will say it was really interesting that Hector was like, okay, I accept my fate, kill me off. And I was like, I ain't got no problem with you, man. I don't care. You just stupid. I've always known this about you. You just stupid. And he went on about his business.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Right? But the thing for me, the other ugly part with, when you're thinking about Carmilla, it's just like you said, you have this night creature who kind of looks like Isaac. And you got to be like, wait a minute. Old dude was much better than any other night creature that Isaac had created. Where did he come from? We had a whole conversation in season 3, like Pass My Cup said, with some of these night creatures who talked about, thank you for bringing me back, because now I can continue to rain hell on this. But we don't know who this pretty night creature, because all the other night creatures look ugly. Let's be real.
Exactly.
But this one was beautiful. He looked like a person. Angel. Yeah, exactly. He had wings. He had abs. I mean, dude was cut. And I'm like, okay, hold up. Tell me about that night creature. So they didn't tell you anything about him. And I'm like, okay, clearly going to have a new season. But my biggest ugly was the whole Saint Germain storyline.
Man.
And we haven't talked about it. I'm going to talk about it.
I know. I got that on my list.
Irritate me to the fullest, and how they interjected and brought about the idea of death. And I was like, okay, hold on here. You're telling me that this British, and I do mean British, vampire was death all along? And then I get why when he explained why he wanted to bring Dracula back, I thought, okay, that makes sense. But you never hinted at that for the first 3 seasons, ever. So you bring this in, and then you have death be this all-powerful creature. And then I'm like, okay, the way that he was taken out, I'm like, I get Trevor is cool and he's a Belmont, but let's be real. Let's be real here, right? And so that to me, it felt like they just added death in because they're like, well, we know we can't bring Dracula back properly because it didn't make sense.
Right.
He was finally in hell with with the love of his life. And he's like, I'm cool staying over here. Just leave me here. I don't need to come back, right? And that's something that Isaac kept saying. Dracula has earned his rest. Let him be. Yes. Right? Like, leave him be. Yes. We don't need to bring him back. We don't need him. We've never needed him. Right? Yes. So, to me, the fact that they brought in this character, Death, and with Saint Germain, who was just like, dude, were you not thinking? But a lot of the characters were very one-sided. Lenore, right? Hector, right? Yeah. Dracula, Saint Germain, like all of them were very blinders on.
Isaac too, before he got out the castle, before Dracula pushed him into the sand. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, like, to me, and that also tells me too, when he pushed him through the mirror, that told me right there who Dracula respected more. Just saying. I don't care what anybody else says. Dracula respected him more.
Hands down.
Hands down, right? So that to me was some of the ugly parts that I was just like, and then I think the other thing too is how they ended it. Sure, it rounded out nicely, but it was very Americanized. Yeah. Everybody got their dream. You know, Alucard finally found someone who might change the theme of the castle. Cool. You know, you got Trevor and Sypha who, you know, she finds out she's pregnant and they finally bring him back. Okay, cool. And then you have it where Dracula and his love of his life are able to come back. And I'm like, okay, but what are you going to do about that? Because, dude, is he still a vampire? I'm assuming because of how he looked.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely a vampire.
Like, what are they going to do about that? Because, you know, eventually someone's going to feel his presence and be like, oh, he's back.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like, it was very Americanized.
Yeah.
But that was my ugly when it came to the season, was those things there.
I think they could have did without bringing Dracula back. They could have left for just even with Trevor coming back, or Trefor, as she used to call him, Sypha. I think they could have did without bringing Dracula back, and then had an actually pretty good ending, because I actually was into the fact of him possibly being dead and her being pregnant and trying to carry on her life without him. That was more interesting to me. But I can't front. I did like the fact that he came back. Dracula, though, you left him and the wife completely out of there. So that's my issue in there. And I agree with you on that Saint Germain thing. I peeped that too, but I didn't want to get into it.
Yeah.
Wow. Get into it.
I was going to ask about him.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask about the Saint Germain, because it's like he was trying to find someone, which we ended up finding out there was his wife. I'm assuming that it was.
Yeah, the woman he was in love with.
They don't even say
wife or whatever.
They didn't even say wife. They just kind of left that open. You got to like interpret it and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was one thing I want to talk about. And I'm not gonna lie, so y'all say when Camilla first came about that she was kind of disagreeing. Well, obviously she was disagreeing with Dracula, but I think her whole mindset was like, I peeped that from the beginning, that she was trying to fuck shit over.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We all got that.
Yeah.
She was upfront, but she was upfront about it, and she had a plan, and that plan
was always sound.
She was very strategic. It was not. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't.
Nope.
It was thought out because she understood the hierarchy of what these male vampires have brought. So that's why I was saying it was my bad. I mean, I just didn't like. I just didn't like how they. I mean, I like how the fight went. Don't get me wrong. I love that she went crazy on him and was killing a lot of them. But just that, I was like, Isaac could have died a whole bunch of times. Like, no matter how trained he was, Camilla was not even when she fought him, she took a deep breath and she was like, let me calm down because I'm getting enraged. And then I was like, nah, if would have calmed Camilla, come on, bro. Yeah. Like, I mean, Dracula hands down is the strongest out of all of them, but she was like, with her calmness, it was so many things she could have did that I just felt like they didn't utilize. Even when she started literally teleporting like Alucard around the room, I was like, she literally could have did like Dracula and oozed into the blood and popped up on him or something. You know what I mean? Like, it was so many things. But with my ugly, because otherwise I don't care how long we go on this one, because there's just so many characters to talk about. But I do want to keep with the structure so that we don't lose too much traction. For the ugly, for me, it's just the whole last episode. And I mean, outside of the fighting with Cypher, Trevor, and Alucard, which I love when Alucard was like, "This is it," and then next thing you know, you see that whoosh, and you hear that ice go, and I'm like, "Oh, it's
Avengers.
the Power Rangers are back. The Power
we
Rangers
came through the portal.
Back. Yeah, they came through, and he was like, finally, like people that know how to fight, like literally is what he was saying. Finally, people who know to take it to the limit. That was good. But the rest of the season, I mean, the rest of that episode with Death, and how Death was like, I've been here since the dawn of time, but I couldn't reach to hell. I needed humanity to open the door, which that part wasn't that bad. But then the whole aspect of like, I need Dracula to kill. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, aren't you considered like the first vampire, really? The way, I mean, I didn't get that aspect, didn't know if that was really the case or not, but that was confusing. And then go ahead.
I gotta say that piece, I think it's pretty interesting because although he really, what Death does, Death takes you to the next place.
Right.
Like he is the one who comes and collects your soul. He, that's just what he is. But with Dracula, he can kill, and he was the one passing these souls on to Death. So Death was like, I need him to take these people out because that feeds into me to be able to break through this other plane. So it made sense, but it was like, why would you introduce him so late in the game?
Yeah, that makes more sense. And I figured I was trying to piece those two together, but then with the fangs, I was like, wait a minute, are you the first vampire? Like all that stuff tripped me out. And then that final fight between Death and Trevor was like straight video game from Castlevania video game. Like I was like, that looked like some PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 type of situation going on, or some Xbox 360 final boss battle where you running when you running around the world trying to jump from rock to rock. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of what game was like that.
Don't mess up.
Yeah. And I was just like, that was trash. And again, I was like, Trevor really fighting Death is like, that's just not a reality.
What a broke arm. That's the thing that gets me.
It's just not a reality. Like Death is not like Death is an entity that just, to your point, KinkySudz, really just transfers your essence to the next life, whether it's hell or heaven or whatever it goes. But I mean, the way this Death was set up was like Death was like absorbing that energy, and so it really just rubbed me the wrong way. Plus, I didn't like to Blackbearded Nerd's point. I really hated how they brought Dracula and Lisa back. I love the fact how Death was like, I'm going to put them in the same body, make them a hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite, but then keep both of their souls. And because Dracula has a more overpowering soul that he's going to consume Lisa's, and he's going to know it, but she's still going to be there. I was like, oh, that's a vicious thing. Now that part, I was like, oh, Death, you are sadistic, you bitch. But that part was cool. But then the whole fighting, Trevor coming back, which I didn't have no problem Trevor coming back, because I was like, Trevor need a win, man. That man been through some stuff. But but
he's a white man.
I was like, he need a win, but that's not. It was like that was more the that's cool. But I really would have liked that, to everybody's point of like Trevor being gone, Dracula and Lisa being gone. And really just having to and really with Alucard and Cypher having to deal with that and go through that process. So yeah, that was my ugly. But like let's get into it. I'm gonna throw the characters' names out. And I'll go first. No, I'm just joking. I'll go first because I really just want to break down these characters, and we can just talk freely. I'll just jump the camera back and forth to each person. Isaac, to me, love that the black man didn't die. Love that the black man grew. Love that the black man grew. Loved that he knew he was finding out who he was. I love the fact when he talked to the statue of the wizard that he was like, I felt that it was just to kill you. I'm growing. I want to do conquest, but I still feel like this world, like what are night creatures? When he had that conversation with that one night creature that could talk, like what is your role, and like can't your role be so much more, because he was like that's what he thought his role was. Love that fact about Isaac. I'm gonna just knock him down the list so I can let everybody else talk. Go ahead.
I said that was an interesting conversation as well when he was talking with the fly,
yes,
the bug. I forget his name.
Yeah, I don't know his name either. I
He,
just know that night creature was
he was
fire.
like 40 or something like that.
Yeah,
But he came and he had a realization with himself because he was like, I'm made to eat off flesh, eat off blood, eat off shit, and then you bring me back to life to build. That's like exactly the complete opposite of what I'm supposed to do.
right.
And then when he gave him the berries, he's like, oh, this brings back memories.
Right, because it's
That's
a world.
where you supposed to come from.
Exactly, it was a world that he again. It was back to not feeling, not just having a life outside of what he was doing. I think I should pour all this.
But that goes to that other topic y'all were talking about earlier, which was whether or not vampires are humans, etc. Obviously, there is a humanistic nature in there because if you talk about a night creature, which is very basic and subhuman, they still have those characteristics and qualities. And a vampire has the same thing, even though they have these powers, strengths, can fly and transform or metamorph into different things. They still have human characteristics and qualities about them.
Exactly. That's in the night creatures are nothing but damned souls that are being put in these undead, pieced together bodies. So,
but you know what? You know what made me think about that with the night creatures, though, is at least with the fly one, it seemed as though he wasn't the best human that ever lived. You get to the fly, the like because he had those like bug eyes, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that gets me is when you think about the souls, it didn't really seem to be any type of order to which souls were being pulled out. You get what I'm saying? So like in this sense, it's like, were you pulling souls just from hell? Or because even then, it seems as though that you could be pulling them from different time periods as well. So my question has always been, what would be the reason for pulling the soul back? Was it because they didn't feel that they should have died? Was it because of the evil that lived within them that they would pull them in? Because you didn't really learn about any of the other souls that were being pulled, right? So one would assume that it had to be people who had done terrible things on Earth. But is that necessary? Like, is it necessarily true? Could it have been someone who, let's say, died an untimely death and got pulled in? And that because they had died by the hands of someone that they loved or someone they knew, that they came back full with rage, and that's why they were able to get pulled back. Because it makes me think about, go ahead.
Well, with those, like the fly creature said, he was like, the thing that made his sin is that when he was running away from the new religion that was being brought upon, and he was a scholar, he was running, and then so that he could stay running and stay alive, he would say that other people were the scholars, and so a lot of people died because of that, and then he ended up getting killed anyway because they found out. So that's what his that's the reason why. Yeah, that's the reason why he was in hell, and I think for Hector and Isaac, and maybe why Isaac's silver demon angel six-pack guy was I think that was more so, which again they didn't talk about, but I think that was more so Isaac pulling, and at least in my perspective, him pulling from himself and taking his own essence, and the rest of them were just like, I use this and this forgery magic that I have just allows me to open up the gates of hell a little bit and pull
you're assuming that they're coming from hell, right? Like they could be coming from purgatory, as far as I'm concerned, right? And in purgatory, you have a mix of good and bad in there. So my question is, could it be where you have some souls, like I said, who met an untimely death? So let's say you had someone who was killed by their lover, and that rage that builds up in them, right? Or the rage, let's say they met a serial killer who killed them. They get pulled back into this life and they're like, hey, I get a second chance. I'm going to kill everything that walks, that looks like this person, who's a man, who's a woman, whatever the case would be. Like, I'm curious as to how the souls get pulled, because it wasn't really made clear if they were pulling from hell, if they were pulling from like purgatory, and wouldn't necessarily mean that the soul had to commit a sin. That wasn't necessary. Like, of course, the ones they highlighted had committed a sin, but we don't know about all the others. That didn't make sense to me. So I was kind of curious about that, like if that was really the case or not. If that was the case.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, that was see, that's what we do here on Black Nerd Fridays. We go in depth with the societal structure that's set up in the show. I went from Isaac, and then I put Trevor and Cypher, and I'll put Alucard in this same boat, so I can just give us something to talk about in the last few minutes. So for Trevor, for Trevor, Cypher, and Alucard, especially for Cypher and Alucard, I love how they were entered, how they entered Trevor's world, what they had to deal with, because the amount of spikes that were put up for Alucard because of people who he attempted to, and maybe he did or did not, but in my mind, he attempted to show them something, give them knowledge, the books and all that, and they all just were trying to figure out how to kill vampires. And so he was losing hope in humanity, going past with vampires or power or whatever it was that they were going off of, and instead of learning, which his father, it took him time to grow to learn, but he also saw that about humanity because he was immortal, that it was like, most of humanity, at least from his experience, did not want to really learn. They didn't cherish culture. They just threw it away because whatever new culture came, took it and wiped it away. And it's really about power. That was a culture that humanity was drawn to. As far as Cypher, I love the fact in that 6-week time, that time backup, not even skip, that she literally was fighting with Trevor every day. And that's something that Trevor did all the time. And she was like, you're changing me. Like, I'm cussing, I'm saying fuck and shit, and I'm doing all these, I'm killing humans when I really didn't want to. I'm killing humans because like they were killing kids, and like she literally, it was no line of what humanity was and what monsters and demons and vampires were, because she was seeing the ugly side, as Trevor said, to what he saw, which is people have that dark side, and it's not vampires or night creatures or monsters that you're always hunting. You got to deal with the darkness of humanity, and that was just totally shown when all these mostly males were attempting to bring back Dracula. And actually, it wasn't mostly male; it was all male. When I wrote that down, they were all attempting to bring back Dracula, and I was just like, it was like Trevor said, it was like, this is just batshit crazy. Like, who does that? Like, who does it? But most of them were vampires. The other ones is for the cult, not cult, excuse me, the group that was worshiping death. They were all human. They weren't vampires. So that was crazy in itself. And I thought that was really cool. And before I finish up, let me finish. Oh, go ahead.
I got one question for you about Cypher. Do you guys think that she was overpowered? Because when you think about how she was fighting, right? Girl could actually, control all the elements, right?
Oh, yeah, like
fire,
Avatar.
water. Like she basically was Avatar, right? And Last Airbender, not Avatar, but she had some ability to, she would get some cuts and she would get some dings, but girl never really had any situations where she was like completely taken out.
Nah.
Right?
I mean, come on. You can make this out of ice that can cut people's head off. Like, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I was
she made shields of ice.
You don't need Trevor. Like, you literally could go do this yourself.
Right.
You don't need him.
She did need him, because when we first met her, she was the whole statue of stone.
Yeah, that's facts. That was facts.
Listen. Listen, I'll tell you this, but since then,
dropping that knowledge on him past my.
But you know what? So he met her as a statue, but since then, has she ever had those type of situations?
No,
she was learning. Go ahead, Ring.
No. I agree with her. But what I want to say, it kind of relates to what you were saying, but maybe even a little deeper. When you think about Alucard and what he was expecting from the world or humanity. Now, when it comes to us, this is just us right now as humans. We have knowledge at our hands, whether it's reading a book or going online, and it's preferably reading a book. A lot of us would throw that aside just to gain that wealth, just to gain what we conceive or perceive to be power. And we'll waste everything just to gain that, and we lose ourselves. We turn so evil and dirty to do that, and that's what a lot of this world is about. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's more about what can I attain, what level can I get to, what amount of destruction can I amass before someone comes in and stops me. And what I really respected about just the show, and I'm looking at it all around, is, and I relate this to myself, going through a lot of different trials and adversities and being able to persevere, even though you feel like you're down and out, because Alucard felt that way a lot of times, but he was able to keep going and pushing on like he had to. And that's what I respected about him the most. And that's why I like the show the most. But it didn't make sense to me until that last episode.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. I love Alucard. I know KinkySudz likes Alucard. Alucard to me was like, his mother was like, there is goodness in humanity, even though your father is like, it's not. That's literally
a lot of his mother's traits.
Yeah, a lot of his mother. Yeah, definitely a lot of his mother.
I mean, I think
go ahead.
I also feel like he was a bit naive sometimes too.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was the thing that bothered me the most about him, because it was just like, if your daddy almost killed you, Invincible. Think about this. Your daddy almost killed you.
Yeah, that's right.
Like Invincible's daddy, Omni-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly your father had some reason for it. Like, let's think about that for a second, right? And he kept trying to feel like, to say, oh, well, this human can't be that bad. Like when he had the man and the woman who came in.
Yes.
And he was like, oh, hey, we about to get some type of action going here. And they tied old dude down. I'm like, dude, did you not get a vibe from them? Like when you were out in the forest? Like, let's think about that.
He was attempting to look at the world differently. Like, because
no,
I mean, he seriously was, because he didn't.
Wrong.
I know, but he was attempting not to be.
I don't think he didn't know.
Yeah,
I think he didn't know.
I think he definitely was like, his pessimism was at an all-time high, but he's like, I'm gonna swallow this pessimism and I'm going to
swallow, because he was looking for some action.
Yeah. No, he wasn't, because that didn't come to the end, and he was like, okay, that's something that he'll experience, but like he was like, man, this is crazy, and he was like, look, I'm not trying to trick you. I knew that Sora was coming. Like, they didn't even have to. I didn't have a fear that he was going to die. I just was like, how much more pain are you going to go through with these twins before you go lights out? Which I knew he was doing. And I mean, Alucard's character is, just to your point, he does have some naivety or naivete, but he really was attempting not to see the world like his father. And even in season 4, he was like, just like old pops used to do, or dad used to do with all the spikes. He was just like, I don't want to. He really didn't want to be that person, because if he was that person, really his question would be, then why did I kill him? Well, I mean, why did I wage war? Yeah, why did I wage war against my father if humanity really is exactly what
terrible.
He said they are?
But that's the thing. Like, when you think of, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Pastor.
I think that goes back to exactly what you said before, as far as like, they thought only evil came from the vampires and the night as opposed from the humans. And then Alucard tried to see the world that way. And when he realized, like, oh, they over here tricking me, we about to have sex, you got to get it on. Then that's any human's most like vulnerable. That's like you giving yourself away. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you naked.
We should have
literally, figuratively. Yep.
And here we are. I'm giving myself to you while we're in bed. I've also opened up my castle to you. I've trained you on all this stuff. I've given you the most knowledge that I could give you, and y'all still trying to fuck me over?
Yeah.
So that was my question too. Like, because him trying to be a good soul, him trying to be a good person or whatnot. Knowing that he's a fucking vampire, he can kill you within the snap of the fingers if he wanted to.
That's
but he didn't do that. And once he was like, man, I could have put up danger signs, warning signs. This would be good enough. So I don't know. Does he like go on to the bad side?
I'm gonna have to let you watch it, man. We ain't gonna. I mean, we spoiled a lot, but we're gonna let you watch the rest of season 4 so you can see for yourself. Yeah, like this. I mean, I got even more notes, but I mean, literally, we'll be here for like another hour, which I don't want to be. We already talked about Camilla. We already talked about Lenore. We already talked about Death, whose character was just crazy. The guy that was with Death, the other vampire, I forgot his name, if anybody remembers his name. But I love
the Russian.
Yeah, the Russian guy. I love how he was like, because Lonnie, aka Death, was like, "Oh, you don't really fight. You go and stab people in the back like an assassin or whatever." And he was like, well, "That's the truth." He was like, "When you're in war, there's no pretty much what he was like. There's no right way to fight in war." He was like, "There's either you live or you die." And I love that aspect. And I also love the fact when he said, like, you, Lonnie, aka Death, you pretend to be a vampire, but you, Dracula, all of y'all vampires are not being a vampire in the truest form. The vampire in the truest form is to devour and eat and suck the blood out of these humans and do it again and again and again. And I love the fact that happened. I mean, I'm kind of upset that he he died kind of weak because he was really whooping Trevor's butt, even though Trevor had 6 weeks of fighting all day, every day, nonstop, 1 hour of sleep. So the real Trevor would have definitely woke him up real quick. But like, I like that character, and I don't even remember his name. And then I also like something that Strieger said, and I wrote this down. She said, "Vampires win all the battles, but lose the war." And she was, and that fight that she had with the farmer, she said, "Look, Miranda, like, look, they had no chance of winning this. But they literally utilized the sunlight and to their advantage, but they knew that it was probably a 0.00001% chance of them winning." And she was like, "It's not going to stop." And she was like, "It's not going to stop." And she said that vampire, and that's what I love about what Strieger was saying, or at least what I took from it, was like, vampires, and I'm going to pull this question up now because I know we've been on for a minute. I'm going to show this question of do the vampires in Castlevania see themselves as better than the humans? And I think what really Strieger was saying in that comment, and even Lenore said that. Lenore's comment was, Lenore said something along the lines, and where did I put it? Gotta get my notebook out here. Lenore said, "Power is an egg that grows and needs to be fed." And she was talking about that with Camilla as Camilla was changing, talking about this world conquest. And she said that's the difference between strength and power. And I really wanted to get not only in this question, and I'll stop talking because I want to let you all end it off. Like, what do you feel about the vampires, like Camilla, or even all the rest of the vampires? Not Dracula, because Dracula, I think he realized that the vampires are exactly the same way. Like I said, our last episode about Castlevania, why he hid a lot of that knowledge from them, because they didn't even want to know it. They would just burn it to the ground too, because they just wanted to have sex, drink blood, and conquer the world as well. But what are your takes on the vampires seeing themselves better than humans, or do they see themselves better than humans? And and the aspect of power versus strength, to how Lenore put it. And I'll start off with Pass My Cup.
I do think that within the series, the vampires thought they were better than the humans, for sure. Obviously, they got super strength. They refer to the humans as livestock. So it's like, you're not even like an equal to me. You are literally just that. And their only concern for humans were the food supply, pretty much. So in that aspect, the second question, I don't think I got that far yet.
Second question, you haven't got that far, so I'll hold you off on that, and you can come back and we can talk about that off mic and camera about Lenore's aspect of strength versus power.
But I do want to say one thing: how you referred to the you mentioned before, as far as like with the it looking like video games and
at the end, the ending with death,
I would say the graphics for the whole show is pretty dope.
Yeah, that's fire. Yeah, they're fire. Except for the last episode. And you'll understand what I'm talking about when you get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to KinkySudz. So 2-part question. Do the vampires in Castlevania see themselves as better than humans? And your perspective on Lenore's comment about power versus strength, with power being pretty much the weakest of the two because it's constantly consuming.
Oh yeah, let me touch on that. So, do the vampires think that they're better than humans? Yes, and I think that draws from their humanity, because we as humans naturally assume that we are an apex predator. I mean, look at it. We've been able to terraform Earth to be conducive to what we want to do, right? We're even talking about now going to other planets and terraforming them to be more of what we want and what we need. And I think that comes a bit of hubris that comes into that, this false sense of we are, perfect when we're not.
Or we're in
Right? I
control
mean,
when we're not.
when we have control over things, but we don't. I mean, we barely understand how our own brain works, how our own body works. We're learning about things like we create things, like we make inventions, and then we go and find these same things that have happened in nature. But nature has been around for how much longer? Right?
You can't even
So when
tell.
you think about these type of things and the fact that vampires are derived from a human being infected with whatever it is that turns you into a vampire, I'm not surprised that this idea that we are better than humans continues on, right? Like we're better than what we were before. So that to me made sense, that vampires like, well, we have increased strength. We don't die. We can basically not have to worry about food. We just got to drain blood from another human or even from animals. It may not be as great as a human, but we can still survive off of animals, right?
No.
And like, Pass My Cup said, they viewed us as livestock, the same way that we view cows and sheep and everything else. And pigs and chickens, right? So that doesn't surprise me that idea of that we're better than continues. But this whole idea of power and strength, I mean, that in itself I thought was very interesting conversation, because when you think about being in power really means that, sure, everyone looks to you as the main person. But in order to establish oneself, you've had to, really kind of second guess what your morals are, right? Depending on which how you acquired your power. You think about drug lords and how they, when they make it into that power position, how they have to maintain that. Like they have made it to a point where they have so much power, but they're constantly having to look over their shoulders. You get what's like that? That is a constant drain of always worrying about someone coming up and trying to take your place. It's the same thing that you see in power dynamics in nature, with in the animal kingdom, where you have this alpha male who comes in, but he's constantly on guard. Constantly. He has to protect his pride, and he has to protect his place as alpha, because he always has someone younger coming in trying to challenge him. And you see that when you have your kids, right? When you have children, they are constantly going to be questioning and challenging why you have these rules in place. It's a constant thing, right? When you're at work, and especially in any type of job, there's always this power dynamic that's happening. You're constantly having to protect your power to say, no, this is the way that we have to do it, and here's the reasons why. There's always going to be something or someone trying to challenge it. And I thought that made a lot of sense to me, that power is the weakest because you're constantly having to be on guard, right? Strength can come in multiple forms, and we have seen it. I mean, when you think about a mother who sees her child in distress, how she can lift a car to get her child out of that situation. Or when you think about someone who sees their loved one in a problem, where they can go in and it's like you go into a different mode to try and save that person, right? Strength in itself. I mean, when you've gone through, like how Trevor, day in and day out, he was dealing with stuff, day in and day out. His family had lost the allure of the name. Sure, the history was there, but that was still kind of there. But again, people looked at him as, you're just a drunk, right? And then he's constantly going out and fighting battles. He's not getting paid enough. Like, there's these constant things that he just kept going through. He sees the ugliness of humanity, but he still continues down this path of, let me save humans as best as I can. That to me, it's like that strength that you're drawing from, that compassion that you're drawing from, those type of things. It takes a bit of you being outside of yourself and taking out that emotional aspect to really tap into that. So for me, I thought it was really interesting because, again, strength can come in multiple forms: emotional, physical, intellectual. But again, that is all you could always refine and strengthen strength, right? But with power, you're constantly trying to protect that every single time. Like, it never reaches a point where you're not able to not have to worry. I mean, God himself, if you really believe in God, he's constantly going against the devil and trying to prove that I am the one that you should follow, not him. You know, not him. And he's constantly trying to prove. I mean, you hear stories of like Job. He's constantly letting these things, these trials happen to his followers to prove that he is the best route to be, right? So to me, that is always something that's always going to be there, and I agreed with her on that. But I still feel as though the way that she went out was pretty powerless. But you know, I'll leave it at that.
That is going to be a great 30-second, 1 minute clip that I'm going to put on. Like, I'm going to leave it up to Ren to finish it off.
Mr. Refine.
Man, I'm not even going to comment. Mr. Refine, go ahead.
I'm not even going to go as deep as her.
But remember,
not that deep. All right. So as far as vampires being stronger or being above humans, absolutely. And as y'all have both said, when you look at Blade, they looked at them the same way, livestock. So we already know that answer. That we can move on from there. Now, power and strength. So power, that comes in a lot of different ways. But when you have power, the same way KinkySudz said, you're always looking over your shoulder. You're always trying to protect it and guard it. You are willing to sacrifice any and everything to keep that power. So that's, it's kind of nothing. But most men, particularly white men, they like to stay in power, whatever that may be. When it comes to strength, it takes a lot to have strength. And I'm a person that has strength. I can see things and I know when to pick and choose a fight. So you can say, and I'll just relate this to work. There's things I might not like going on at work, and I'll know something doesn't make sense. And I might say, okay, mentally, I'm going to challenge it, but physically, I'm not going to speak my opinion on it. I'm going to just let it slide because I'll wait till it's really mattering before I have to say what I have to say. So strength is more important. Power doesn't mean anything. That's just my personal opinion. You can be the strongest person as far as your power, but none of that matters if you don't have what you need to keep you protected or safe, as opposed to having the strength to make the right decision at the right time. So I prefer to have strength any day, anytime. And that's more important to me.
Man, another one. Like that was
another one.
That was fire, man.
Another one.
Well, again, we way past the hour mark, but I mean, we're gonna end it with this. Again, this is Black Nerd Fridays. This is what we do. Like, we have in-depth conversations. We're gonna continue to do what we do. We're gonna market ourselves better and not follow a trend, but follow our own lane. That's one thing that Mr. Refine himself, Blackbearded Nerd, is constantly saying. And I appreciate it from him, and we're gonna find it through. And if you haven't watched Castlevania, I mean, minus season 3, I guess, as my cup said. But I liked all the seasons. I mean, I definitely agree. Season 3 has its moments, but I like the aspect of conversation, because a lot of times in shows, and I'll end with this, a lot of shows, when they do have in-depth conversation where it actually ties into everything that's happening in the show, and it's really a push and pull of two different ideologies, it is an amazing conversation, and it actually intrigues you a lot more for the show than if you just said, cut off heads, kill this person, take over, blah, blah, blah. So this has been another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. Pass my cup. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you.
Anytime.
KinkySudz, Blackbearded Nerd, glad you can get on, man. We got that all taken care of. Man, this is great. So we will catch you next Friday. It's going down. We're actually going to do Ray Comics next Friday. So that's going to be RAE Comics. That is a Black-owned comic company where they are actually doing their Joystick Angels, which is the name of their series that they're doing. They also did a soundtrack for it. So these brothers, and they're actually brothers. When I say brothers, like blood brothers, and then brothers as far as Black as well. They've definitely been on their campaign from promo run, because they are doing their Kickstarter for this. This is for the second book of the series. So episode 1 or book 1 is already out. Book 2 is coming out after the Kickstarter. So definitely on at Ray Comics, RAE Comics on Instagram, and we can't wait to talk to them this Friday and talk about their series and really their inspiration, because Black people Black people do art. Black people do everything. Like, everybody does everything, and we're just not monoliths. And I can't wait to showcase them and talk to them, and really especially the soundtrack. I want them to drop a couple of the beats and maybe a few songs. So that would be fire. So, hey, we'll catch y'all on the next episode. Peace.
This is